we have to recognize that these structures media structures have a lot to do fundamentally with our moral claims, with the types of political and economic systems in which we live. And keeping those notions, I think, close to the heart will keep us on track with all the work that we do, with the media that we make, with the media that we critique, and with the systems that we work to establish. So I think this group is also different because you are all different. You're working within and with communities very directly. And that's not the case with a lot of the forums in which I speak, frankly. You're not so much reporting on communities as you're working with communities. You're creating media that tells the community's own stories. You're very close to that. And storytelling, after all, is such an essential human behavior. Absolutely essential. And this is what you're doing. One of our early speakers made exactly that point. And that means that as storytellers, who puts together the stories ends up having a lot of responsibility for shaping our culture and for getting it right. Disenfranchised groups, forgotten people, neighborhoods, hidden abuses, neglected injustices, celebrations, some of the things that our communities are doing right. All these make the link between telling stories and creating an environment for social justice, or an environment of social justice. That makes it important, even essential for our society. And then the third point that makes this group, this summit, a little bit different, for me at least, is the time. The time. We're on the cusp of what I think will be a very important election. I think we're all feeling that somehow. When I was thinking about that, I wrote in my notes the heat, because I was reminded of something that happened to me yesterday. I'm on a university committee that looks at infrastructure, looks at telecom infrastructure and computer infrastructure. And I visited the architecture department yesterday for that committee, and their infrastructure is in the bowels of the architecture building, and it's this really plain Jane room with all kinds of cables that they prettied it up, as architects can do. And in this room, they had what was for them a really transformational piece of technology. It was a fabricator. And it's one of these things like out of Star Trek. It will take a two-dimensional object on a piece of paper, you feed it in, and it will spit out, after some hours, a three-dimensional object. In this case, sculpted in a kind of wax. It's really, really remarkable piece of equipment. You can understand why architects would need something like that. But the guy I was talking to said something really interesting, I thought. He said, yeah, we like these machines, we change them, we want to get the newest version. And they change things all the time, and we change things all the time. And he said his philosophy on what they were doing there with their curriculum and with their tools was just apply heat and then reshape. Just apply heat and then reshape. That's what we're doing, I think. We're applying some heat, and we can apply a lot more heat. And the media in which you all work can be so hot. And we're at a moment when that heat can really, really matter. So it's a propitious time, I think, for us to apply the heat and to think about how to reshape the agendas and how to reshape some of the solutions to the many questions that we're also familiar with. We have a political environment that's changing. I think it's palpable now that this competition policy that began to unfold 25 years ago is bankrupt. And there are so many opportunities, many of which have been aired here today, presented by the web as well. This is all heat. This is all heat that we can use, that we can apply. So I was asked to say something about the significance of the summit then in the national context, and a lot of the elements of the national context have been aired already. Elements pertaining to topics or issues like net neutrality, like universal service, the video franchising laws, the state of broadband deployment and broadband access and all of that. But I feel like I need to kind of bracket that national context with just a few comments about the role of technology in society. And here's where I might get a little academic on you. The national discourse about media systems, as I said before, generally talks about them in terms of the economy. How profitable they are, maybe how many people they employ, or as tools that happen to appear or disappear, and when useful are popular and helpful to inform, maybe to entertain us. And then of course we have these moments of national psychosis when we get very worked up about certain media systems, whether it's the effects of technologies like computers. There was a time when people were really waving the black flags over computers and how much time people were spending on them. Same black flag rose around video games. In fact, it's still probably waving around video games. And that same flag was over movies back in the 1920s and the 1930s. But let me underscore the idea that different technologies make different kinds of human action and interaction either easier or harder to perform. Easy things are more likely to be done. Once we had video technology that became light and portable, there's a lot more video around. A lot more of us could master that technology. That technology afforded us some new opportunities. It essentially did the same thing, but in a different way. It did the same thing insofar as we could create video content, but in a remarkably different way. A term we sometimes use in this context is the word affordance. Affordance. And it's a word that conveys the sense that technologies, different media systems, for example, enable certain things to occur or they inhibit certain other things. Lawrence Lessig, this attorney, law professor at Stanford, uses the word code to refer to the same idea a lot. And when he talks about code, with respect to technologies and software in particular, what he's referring to is this notion that there are things like buried in the technology or buried in the technological system that we kind of take for granted, that are there, that we don't even think about. They become very naturalized, so we don't even think of questioning them. And we don't think of ways to kind of re-chart or rewrite the code. We don't think of ways to break them open and maybe take out the old code and put in some new code.